I had this idea of the term I invented, I think, is information gravity. Like
Uh-huh.
information, if you stand back and look at it, we know it now with the LLMs and ChatGPT and all this. Information collates into just like the universe does. It gravitationally pulls into like-minded information. You know, and there's probably 10% of information that we have access to, and 90% that has never been cataloged, understood, spoken. That's all perspectives. That's tribal wisdom. There's 90% of dark information out there, just like there's dark matter. And I think there's parallels. I think there's a gravitational field to information, physically, real thing. I think it attracts ideas. That's why creatives all of a sudden come up with the same idea across the world. The same, like,
Wh- Where's the dark matter in this? Like, dark matter is something that attracts this growth of abstraction towards it.
well, dark matter. The reason that the dark matter is not measurable, but they believe that it is dark matter, there has to be something because the gravitational forces of planets and galaxies and black holes and everything out there can't explain the way things are held together. So there has to be other gravitational forces that we can't see that keep things in sync and keep things locked, locked in mathematically. Mathematically, what we see, all the matter we see out there, everything we see, every star and everything, is too loosey goosey to keep everything tight like it is.
So,
It would blow apart.
so is this a bit like saying there is a force, like a force, a bit like gravity, towards which evolution is attracted, and we're on our journey towards this thing that is pulling in a coherent way
Yes,
everything towards it,
information. I,
and
I
that's
think information has a gravitational field that we're drawn to. That's why a muse will sit there with a piece of music or a painting, and it will come to him from, we call it from the ether. That's what they used to say, from the muse, right? I do think, I haven't figured it out or floated in my mind, but there's an information gravitational field that like attracts like, peak calls to peak, deep calls to deep, and things collate. And that's why there's fits and starts in creativity and fits and starts in our civilizations, for instance, the way we develop. Like you develop the writing, and all of a sudden, the way you think is different. Now you have now memories can be contained, and then you develop the printing press, and the way you think, the way humans think has now changes because now it's mass produced, and now it's mass information, and you invent the internet, and now it's network. We think in networks we never did before. We think in networks and flowing, and so all these information is gravitationally going in fits and starts in galaxies and stars exploding in the information world, something like that. I don't know if that's what anybody wants to hear or anything, but it's fascinating to me. But I
do
think it's
you
very real.
do you sense that the the people and the culture that we are due to become is already marked, and we are invariably on a direct
Yep.
path
This
to
is this is
become
kind
that?
of the extension of that. We're so bound to the idea that we have agency, and matter is prime. In other words, out of matter arises consciousness, arises information. But imagine if it's the other way around. Information is the substrate, and matter is an immersion from that, and um, and it's a computational universe.
What do you mean by information then? I think we need a definition.
Well, information, to me, is everything that has ever been described or understood. Every perspective, every manner, every word, every thought process, that the primitive people had to us. That information is getting more complex, and it's gathering together in what I would think maps out just like the universe maps out. There's galaxies of information. I just have this in. I'm just assuming this because I have obviously no evidence of this, but it feels like when, for instance, the world came to the turn of the century, 1900s, and it's the artists that go first. Kandinsky and Picasso started to deconstruct shapes and forms in the art world. Music did the same thing with Adorno and stuff. They started to break down tonal structures that we're used to, you know, and all at the same time, the artist kind of did this. And then Einstein comes along and rips apart the Newtonian surety of, perfect, and it became probabilities. So the art predates the science. The art is like saying something, and how they're not more brilliant than anybody else, just because they're connected to, because the information is gathering into a gravitational field that everybody's pulled toward, everybody sees. So Einstein, Picasso, Kandinsky, Braque, all these guys, they all turned to this and they all felt that there's something shifting in the consciousness, and they all tried to depict it in their own way. James Joyce, deconstructed language, all at the same time, and so it's the same now. And but you can't see that what is happening until you look at it, 20 years later. You can't name that epoch. Say, oh, this is the epoch of the deconstruction of art, modernism. Nobody knew it was modernism when they're in it. Nobody knows it's Art Nouveau when they're in it. It just feels like everybody's doing the same thing. And why? Because and it's not like one person starts it and they copies it necessarily. It's like kind of they all feel this. The industrial age informs art. No, the art informs industrial age, etc. And and civilizations are speeding up. And it used to take like 100 years to make a change of technology or something. Like you would see, we're still riding horses and we're still making saddles. And 100 years later, there's some technology improvement in that. Leaf springs and carriages. Now you don't have to sit there and your ass is sore because they invented springs, right? But that took a long time and slowly adopted. Now everything is fastly adopted and fastly new. And the internet comes along and it's just decentralized, beautiful data thing. And then it's gathered into social media. And now it's breaking apart and, it goes fast.